From the Lincoln Journal-Star, this is the Life in the Red podcast with Luke Mullen and Amy Just.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. Luke and Amy here as usual, and today we got quite the episode on tap. Going to talk all things Nebraska's win over UTEP, preview the Colorado game, and also a shock result in Nebraska volleyball. A lot to get into today. Amy, how you doing?
I'm good. I am excited for this week. Someone asked me the other day, like, do writers get excited for big games? I'm like, yes. Of course we do. It's fun. That's why we do it.
No, we prefer the 11 a.m. sleepy kickoff.
Yeah, no, give me all of the excitement, please.
Yes.
So.
Prime and prime time. A lot to look forward to in that one. But we will get started, as we always do, talking some other Husker sports. The soccer team, they've been in action, doing well. The match against Omaha, we were looking forward to seeing those new black jerseys. That was rained out, unfortunately. We'll see if that game gets rescheduled. But big performance in the game after that. Huskers win 5-2 over Creighton. Sarah Weber scored a hat trick in that one. She's having a really good goal-scoring season so far.
Yeah, before her first hat trick of the season, Nebraska hadn't had a hat trick at home since 2018, and now she's had two in the same season. It's pretty fun.
Absolutely. And Huskers, they'll be out on the West Coast this weekend, matches against Oregon State and Portland. So look forward to that for the soccer team. Volleyball team also in action this weekend. Let's talk about it. Dramatic 3-set sweep. SMU took them down. Should we panic? What's happening?
Not yet. I wouldn't panic yet. If they come out and look pretty lethargic this week, then maybe you start to panic a little bit. I think SMU is a lot better than their lack of ranking gives them credit for. It's their first year in the ACC. Lots of transfers on that roster, whether that was transfers this offseason or the offseason before. And they watched the Texas tape and they did very similar things to Nebraska on serve. They were really aggressive, but aced Nebraska at least 5 times. And Nebraska looked just completely disjointed. They weren't hitting very well. They were blocking okay. They were not passing well. They were not receiving well. And then they weren't serving well either. So just a rough night for them. Just about everything went wrong except Andy Jackson looked good, I guess, if you want to find one shining moment from that match.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're listing a lot of fundamental things that they did not do
John was
very well.
Pissed.
Yeah.
Like on the post-game radio, he was not happy. Said that, not a direct quote, obviously, but said that they think they're Nebraska and they can come in and roll over teams. And that obviously did not happen yesterday.
Yep. SMU gave them their best. And I mean, just from an outside perspective, it's a little surprising because, that season opening test against Kentucky, looked pretty good in that one, beat A&M Corpus Christi, beat TCU. So a little bit of a surprise how that shook out. And I guess kind of the question on some people's minds is these lineups, these rotations, like, does Nebraska still need to figure that out? Like, are all these moving pieces impacting how that performance went against SMU?
I don't think so. I think that just about everybody had a rough night. Even Lexi had a bad night in serve receive, which never happens. She's usually very, very good at that. So I think it's, you learn from it and hopefully you learn from it, you move on, use those lessons. But yeah, not great when the biggest issue you had last season was serve receive and it's still an issue.
Yeah, well, I think too, some of the reaction or maybe the overreaction to this loss, it kind of made me step back and go, like, this Nebraska volleyball team last year, they lost one match all season till the national title game. Like, they were lights out. I mean, this stuff happens, right? I mean, you can drop matches in the non-con very easily.
Yeah, and it's not surprising to me that they had dropped a match in the non-con. Granted, I did not think it would be to SMU.
Yeah.
But they have a tough stretch coming up here. They play Creighton next week. It's one of Creighton's best teams ever. They are number 11, I believe, in this week's ranking. So And there's a lot of other top 10 losses this week already. So Creighton might sneak into the top 10 by next week if they handle their own business. So Tuesday's going to be tough. And then, not to mention, they go back to Louisville to play Louisville, who just got swept by Penn State. There's a lot of craziness going on. Wisconsin's 0-3 to start the season.
Yep.
I can't say I would have predicted that either. So, Texas is 1-1. They lost in Minnesota. Like, there's been a lot of craziness the first few weeks of the season. So I wouldn't read too much into it yet, but it's definitely cause for concern, but not cause for alarm for the fan base yet.
Yep, quite the start to the season in college volleyball, and see how Nebraska does in its return to the court. They'll play the Citadel on Thursday and Montana State on Saturday here at home in Lincoln. So that was certainly a newsworthy result from the Nebraska volleyball team, but there's been a lot of talk about this UTEP game. Let's get into it. Nebraska, I mean, they rolled to a pretty easy, comfortable win. Both me and you, we needed to see how Dylan Raiola was going to perform in this one, and pretty good. He's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. Big Ten Freshman of the Week, and he played 2 and a drive worth of quarters, so a little over half the game, and still put up really good numbers. Obviously, there are many things that he wants to fix. Communication on some things. The sack that he took was a miscommunication. That was not on the offensive line. It was all him, and he, took the blame for that. I think he'd take the blame for something even if it wasn't entirely his fault. But yeah, no, I liked how things looked from him, but I also liked how things looked from Heinrich Harburg too when he got the opportunity to play after Dylan went out.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the Nebraska offense looked good. Dylan was a huge part of it. Thought he just executed the throws really well. Wasn't shaky at all, delivering them where he needed to. But big factor too is the wide receivers. We spoke about how that position needed improving over the offseason, and yes, Isaiah Nair and Jamal Banks, they looked phenomenal. They had big games, but it wasn't just them, right? You could go down the list, all the different wide receivers that played.
Carter Nelson getting his first action as a Husker.
Yep.
So
yeah, Janiron Bonner played like 30 snaps, had some key blocks. Ja'Cory Barney, of course, they got him involved, a little touch pass early on. And lots of other guys there, IGC, Alex Bullock, Jalen Lloyd, they all played. I mean, it was really a case where I looked at those wide receivers and it was just like night and day compared to last season. They look really improved.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The one letdown I guess I would have is that they need to get Thomas Fidone more vertical. He can be such a weapon for them, and just using him on some shallow concepts. He's so physical. Like, let him go vertical. I think that could also be a major threat.
Yeah, we all saw that play where he started about a couple yards backwards and wasn't blocked well on the perimeter. It was eventually a couple yard loss, or maybe he got back to the line on that play. But yeah, totally agree with you. I mean, he's so good over the middle of the field last season. See if they can get him involved with that. But
some deep crossing routes, maybe.
Absolutely. But I think some of the key, opening up that pass game was, of course, establishing the run. And Nebraska did a really good job of that against UTEP. Ran the ball well. I thought offensive line, created some great gaps up there. They blocked super well. But, man, Dante Dowdle, would not have guessed that he's going to come out that first series and be that lead back.
No, me either. And then he fumbled in the red zone, and we did not see him again until late in the fourth quarter.
Got banished.
Well,
Matt Rule doghouse.
That's what they said. That is what Matt Rule said. That is what Marcus Satterfield said. If you fumble, you're going to have to sit and let it simmer for a little bit. I had shades of last year when that happened. I was like, not again. I do not want to watch an undisciplined football team again. But that was the only one they had.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a case of that play too, like how Nebraska responded to that adversity. And Matt Rule kind of touched on that in the post game. He was talking more about the halftime. He was saying like, oh, last year this team at halftime, they wouldn't be able to come out in the second half and put them away. Well, the same thing. I mean, when you fumble inside the red zone at the 5-yard line, like easily that's the type of thing that can spiral out of control. Momentum goes the opposite way. You go 3 and out your next series, whatever, and suddenly, your offense is stagnated. Well, Nebraska responded to it. They were right back in it, turned around that adversity right away. So that was really promising to see. And then, I mean, on the defensive side of the ball, took care of business. I mean, really, other than that touchdown drive, UTEP didn't create a whole lot. And then I thought it was great. I mean, looking at those snap counts after the game, I mean, Ty Robinson played 20 snaps. The other defensive linemen were like 10 to 15. Some of the linebackers were at about 20 snaps. The starting linebackers, starting defensive backs only played about 30 snaps. I mean, that is such a light workload for the season opener.
Yeah, and that's, in a game like that, that's what you want, right? You don't want to play your guys all 80 or whatever snaps that UTEP ended up having. You need, if there's an opportunity for it, you need to be able to let them rest. It's a long season. You don't want to burn them out before conference play even begins. It would not surprise me if we get a little higher workload out of those guys this week just because of the game plan. And
it's probably going to be close.
It could be. Yep. I think
Yep.
It will be. But, and that helps them, right? Not to jump ahead, but Travis Hunter played, 120 snaps last week?
Yep.
Like,
that game went down to the last snap.
It did. And so, like, he is a talented athlete. One of the best in the country. But, I mean, like, that's going to wear on him eventually, right? Like, even if he is a freak of nature. Like, down the season, what's that going to look like for him? So I think it's good that Nebraska was able to have just lower snap counts for some of those guys because there are going to be games where that will not be the case.
Yeah, defense should be fresh, and which is good because they're going to be tested. That Colorado offense will test them heavily. We'll get into that scout here in a moment, but a few other updates from the last week around college football in Nebraska. Update from head coach Matt Rhule. We talked about this briefly a couple days ago, but sophomore wide receiver Malachi Coleman, guy who played in 11 to 12 games last year, was a key contributor, could be headed for redshirt season. TBD, injuries, who knows what's going to happen. But for now, it seems like they want to get that development season, maybe 4 games out of him, like you do with the redshirt, and see how he goes from there.
At first I was a little conflicted about it because I really like Malachi. But then you think of what he could be in the future. Getting that, like, development year will be really good for him because he was just completely thrown into the fire last year. And one more year can help him work on, just bulking up, working on his speed, working on his physicality, work more on blocking. Like, he could be really, really good. He is really, really good, but like even that much better by the time his career is over here. So yeah, I see the vision. I like the vision. And you would hope that he'd be able to just pick up where Isaiah left off.
Yeah. Well, the way that I think about it too is like when we were thinking about this wide receiver position in the offseason, they bring in Nair and Banks. You looked at those 3 freshman wide receivers who played last year, Lloyd, Coleman, and Jaden Doss, and it was like, well, somebody's going to have to be the odd man out. Well, Doss is now a cornerback. Coleman, they're probably going to redshirt. I mean, it's a testament to that wide receiver talent. And the way that I think about it too is, well, if Jamal and Isaiah, if they were on the roster when Malachi was a freshman, I mean, he would have just redshirted as a freshman then. I mean,
yeah,
he played because he had to play, right? I mean, that was the situation. So I think an element of it, Matt Rhule, he wants to look out for the long-term development of these players, as you said. I mean, if he thinks Malachi is going to be better as a junior and a senior by redshirting this year, they're just going to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, unless they can't.
Yep. Situation demands it, which is what happened last year. That's why he played and got a good chunk of playing time at it. So we'll see what shakes out with that situation. And another situation on this roster is a very unique one. Tight end Mac Markway came to Nebraska of his own accord, regular student, enrolled, and then showed up and said, "Hey, I'd like to be on the football team."
I love it.
Isn't that cool?
I mean,
he was already a football player. Don't
a good
one.
Yeah. A good one too. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, bet on yourself, I guess. I like it. He could I mean, no one has said that he won't be available this year. Obviously, he needs to get up to speed because, he missed all of camp. But God, what a story that would be if he plays like later in the year.
Yeah, I mean, he was on the sideline. He was checking things out. Being with the team there on Saturday, and it's a really interesting situation because, I mean, from a Nebraska standpoint, like you're not going to say no, to a talented athlete walking through the door saying, "Hey, I'd like to grind for this team." But then from an NCAA standpoint, it's kind of odd because this isn't supposed to happen, right? I mean, you're supposed to have
Mm-mm.
these transfer portal windows that you're limited to. So this was kind of like a loophole, you could say. I mean, not that like guys are going to be doing this en masse because it was a risk for
It was a
him.
huge risk.
Yeah.
Like Nebraska could have said, we already have
hmm
140 guys on the roster. No.
Yeah. And then he would have already, been enrolled, had to figure that out. I mean, it could have been a whole situation for him. So yeah, really unique that he wanted to come to Nebraska, at least did his due diligence, made sure to take those steps, and they're happy with him, happy to have him on the roster. We'll see again if he can make an impact this year, but that situation will be continuing to unfold. A lot of talent there at that tight end room. And zooming out a little bit here, big picture on the Big Ten. Nebraska won its opener. So did everybody else except for Minnesota. Big Ten 17-1 on opening weekend.
Yeah, and Minnesota, they could have won. They were in the exact same position, just a different hash mark from their opener last year.
But this field goal went wide right, and they lost that one.
Same yardage.
Mhm.
Both were the exact. Strange.
Yeah,
Very strange.
bizarre coincidence. Yeah, there were a lot of maybe cupcake easy openers in that one, but good strong start for the 18 team Big Ten, and some marquee matchups that they're involved in. Nebraska, Colorado is one of them. Michigan, Texas, also the other. But we all know what we're focused
Kansas,
on here.
Illinois.
That's true. That one's on your mind heavily.
Illinois sold out for the first time in years. Like that place is going to be rocking this week for them. So
telling people that Kansas road team in the non-con is a huge draw.
It is. How dare you?
What times we live in here?
How dare you?
But of course, all eyes here in Lincoln on that Nebraska-Colorado matchup, and that'll bring us into today's Husker hot topic. We've heard a lot about these teams, the rivalry that was, of course, reignited last season with some new head coaches, Matt Rule and Deion Sanders. There was some back and forth there. It's continued this week, maybe on a different tone. So let's get into our topic. Do Matt Rule and Deion Sanders have legitimate beef between each other?
I mean, they're two very different people. And some people are going to agree with how Matt Rule does things. Some people are going to agree with how Deion Sanders does things. As of right now, neither is right nor wrong because neither made a bowl last year. So I guess we have to wait and see from like that perspective as who is right. But I mean, I don't think so. I think it's just kind of, inflated a little bit by the fan bases. Some people read into things more than they should. I think a better question is, should Sanders have beef with Matt Rule?
Yeah, that's
because
right.
I think the answer to that question is yes. But I don't. They're just two guys who want to see their team succeed, and they're building their rosters in different ways, and they're going about it in different ways. And as of right now, neither is right nor wrong. So I don't think so. But like, what would it accomplish if either one of them came out and said, screw this guy, screw that guy? Like, what would that do?
ESPN would love it.
Sure, I guess. But it's just like, nah.
Yeah, I think they've both handled the spotlight well this week. They're both competitors, right? I think that was something that maybe kicked off the initial feelings last year's, right? They just want to beat each other. They want to be better than each other. It doesn't matter who the coach is, why, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, everything that Shedeur had to say, in the post game about, Nebraska was disrespecting them, huddling on the 50-yard line on the logo. saying he was disrespecting Deion Sanders. I mean, that certainly didn't help things, those public comments. But I will give all the credit in the world to Deion for the way that he did handle that during his press conference this week. He was complimentary of Matt Rule. He's saying like, hey, they're building there too, like wish them the best. So I did think that was good from both coaches to, yes, they had that animosity or whatever, brief flare up that they had last year, but both of them threw cold water on that this week, said, we're just trying to win a football game.
Yeah. And look, like if Shitter thought that Nebraska was disrespecting them, like, and disrespecting his dad, like, okay, you should stand up then. Like, speak your beliefs. Like, that didn't bother me at all. Now, it is what it is, but Nebraska does prey on the midfield logo.
Yeah, no whether it was accurate or not.
Yeah. But again, like, your actions and what you say, like, just because you have good intent doesn't mean they're always received well. And so sometimes you have to just deal with that.
That's some wisdom here on the pod today.
You're welcome.
Yep. Not just football, folks, life wisdom.
Yeah. Well, years of therapy. No. But yeah, it's, it is what it is. And I'm sure that things are going to be crazy again this week.
Yep. There's a lot of emotions around this game, but don't think we need to worry about the head coaches and that relationship in this one. So let's get into Colorado. Let's talk about everything that we have to look forward to in this matchup. And I think at the top of this list is, how is it going to feel inside Memorial Stadium on Saturday night? It's going to be electric.
Yeah, I feel like there hasn't been a game quite like this here in a while. Like, I imagine it'll be very similar to, I guess similar is not the right word. Just the excitement will be on a similar level as last year's Nebraska-Colorado game was, like, especially in, the lead up to it. It's a night game. It's, a storied rivalry, two teams that hate each other, fan bases that hate each other. Could be the last one of these games for a while. Spoiler, that's my pregame column this week. And there's going to be a lot going on around the game. Nebraska's honoring their 1994 national championship team. Frank Solich is going to be honored at some point during the game as well, as before he gets inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame. Will Compton's going to be back. Like, there's going to be a lot of things going on around the game that are going to continue to, like, crescendo the noise around it.
Yeah, I think for me, being, around that tunnel walk, before the game, going through the warmups, I mean, the Akron game, there was so much buzz. You could feel it in the air in that game. And of course, the game didn't happen. So we can't really say, can't really compare those two. But like, that's the only thing I can think, like, you could just feel it in the lead up to that game. And that's what I expect in this one. And then the other thing I think is, yeah, you mentioned from the fan standpoint, if you just think about how these last three Colorado-Nebraska matchups have unfolded, and I feel pretty fortunate. I've been at each of those games. Colorado came here, and it didn't go Nebraska's way, but it was kind of like the rivalry's back, like resume it. Goes out to Boulder. Colorado wins that one. It's a stunner. They storm the field. The post-game scene there was crazy. Like, Colorado fans were on the field, like, flipping off the Nebraska section. I mean, there was like, the animosity was coming out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Last year, it really started coming out. Colorado, they got all this attention. Both these programs are trying to be back. And I mean, now this is such a pivotal moment in both teams' season. It just feels like some of that angst, that the years of struggles for Nebraska, I just feel like it's going to be coming out here on Saturday night.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's been a while since we had a game like this, a Nebraska-Colorado game like this. And I would imagine that the fans are going to relish in that for as long as they can.
Absolutely. And I mean, for as much as we can talk about all this history, how much it's going to mean to people inside the Nebraska football facility, they're trying to block it all out. They're just trying to focus on their own work. Yes, it's a rivalry. People are heated, but still 60 minutes of football, still the same game. So that's kind of been the mindset for Nebraska. But this is a Colorado team that, as we scout them, we got to see that North Dakota State game. I mean, they were pushed heavily in that one. It was 31-26. North Dakota State, they completed a Hail Mary that was 5 yards. I mean, shy of the end zone at the end of that one.
The
So
officials botched
yeah,
that entire sequence. But I would say, though, North Dakota State is better than UTEP.
agreed. Yep.
So
Yeah, but I guess just what I felt like coming away from that game, I just didn't feel like Colorado had addressed the issues that they had last year. It felt like some of the same issues were hurting them. So I mean,
mhm.
let's talk about the way this Colorado team is constructed. I mean, they have a phenomenal passing attack. I mean, Shedeur Sanders, he's going to be a first-round NFL draft pick, one of those first quarterbacks taken. Ton of weapons to throw to. Travis Hunter, we all know what he does playing two ways. I mean, he's a phenomenal wide receiver. Jimmy Horn, he burned Nebraska a little bit last year, had a huge game in week 1, too. They added LaJohntay Webster and Will Shepard, two other top wide receivers, senior impact transfers, but they can't run the ball and they don't protect super well. Like, it is an odd offense.
It's very strange. It feels like high risk, high reward.
They want to just score more points. I mean, of course you want to score more points.
No,
but
duh.
They're trying to run, let that offense go. Yeah.
But yeah, it just feels like they'll either burn you for like a 98-yard touchdown or like Shedeur is going to get sacked like 12 times. And there's like no in between.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean this run offense is just interesting to me because Nebraska last year, I mean, they shut down what Colorado tried to do on the ground. Buffalo's under 2 yards per carry. They go up against North Dakota State, who, yeah, they're a great team, but you expect, right? You expect that Colorado should win in the trenches, be able to move that line. 23 carries for 59 yards. That's 2.6 yards per carry, which not as bad as that Nebraska mark, but still not great for a game that they should have been able to run the ball a little bit. So just got to think that Nebraska is going to match up pretty well there. And if that does go the way expected to, it'll be all the pressure on Shedeur again.
Yeah. But he's so dangerous though, like just because Nebraska had a field day rushing him last year. What, they had like 7 sacks on
8
him?
sacks.
Yeah,
Yep.
something like that. So, but Colorado still won though.
Yep.
Like last year. So like, yes, Nebraska's defense did a really good job on them last year, but he can still make you pay because all it takes is 1 or 2.
Yep.
And they have that ability for sure.
Yeah. And I think as much as I might say that, oh, this offense, like, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, Colorado, they do play complementary football. The defense plays the way that they know that the offense is going to do. And by that, I mean they're aggressive. They play man coverage. They're on the outside. They're really, I think, best on the back end because they know they're going to be in a lot of these passing games where they're going to be going up against it that way. So I think Colorado, they know that's going to be the case. Expect that going in, that it's going to be pass-heavy matchup. So let's get into our game predictions then. Scoring going to be high? Is passing going to be high? What do we expect for this one?
I think that scoring is going to be high. Passing is going to be high. Nebraska's run game will be there. I am unsure if Colorado's will be there.
Agreed. Yeah, I think I just expect that this game is going to be dictated by Shedeur Sanders versus the Nebraska secondary. That's just what I think.
Oh, yeah, without question.
Yep. But I'm going to predict Nebraska win. I'm going 35-30.
Yeah, I'm similar. 34-31. I think it's going to come down to a last-minute field goal, as some previous Nebraska-Colorado games have come down to.
Yeah, could definitely be a stressful fourth quarter in this one. And yeah, I mean, just thinking about this matchup, I just think that the Nebraska defense is going to provide a solid basis. Dylan Raiola, I think this offense is ready for this test against Colorado. I think they're going to be able to score some points because, I mean, really that's what held Nebraska back last year. I mean, the offense played, I think,
turnovers.
Yeah, they played
all of the turnovers.
I think the offense played about like 10 minutes of good football against Colorado last year. So really they need a lot more from that perspective. But yeah, this defensive line, I think they're going to have a good day. And again, that secondary is going to be tested. But I think it is shaping up with the atmosphere. And again, I just think Nebraska's made those improvements. Colorado's still dealing with some of those issues. That's just how I feel.
Yeah. And you're allowed to feel that way. I just worry about the one drive that UTEP had that they went tempo. Like they caught Nebraska flat-footed. Colorado's not going to do that for just one drive. Like, they're going to do that for a lot of the game. So does Nebraska get caught flat-footed? Does Travis Hunter blow by somebody? I don't know. And I do think Nebraska comes out on top, but it could be close. And a lot of people's Apple Watches and Garmin's will be warning them about their high heart rate.
The decibels too.
Oh, yes.
It's all going to be going on.
Bring your earplugs, people. I know I will.
Absolutely. Well, that will be certainly a great atmosphere in the stadium. And as for what we're watching for on the field, touched on a little bit there, Travis Hunter. I mean, he's such a big draw for this game.
Yeah, it's all eyes are going to be on Shitter and Travis. And will they go bananas again? They easily could. But I don't think you're going to stop them. It's just, how do you limit them? How do you keep them from breaking away on some explosive plays rather than containing them? Because you're not going to stop them. It's just, can you manage that effectively?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I'm looking at that defensive line. 8 sacks. I don't think they're going to get 8 this year, but certainly, I expect them to make life tough for Shitter. Sanders collapse that pocket. He does like to hold on to the ball. Extend plays a lot. He does great at it. Finds some guys for some crazy throws, but sometimes get caught out, gets sacked when he does hold on to that ball. Then the other thing too, from a Nebraska standpoint on offense, I mean, it was very vanilla last week. It was not,
with the exception of one little wrinkle.
Heinrich Harburg, 2 quarterbacks on one play. But I mean, other than that, I just think there's potential there for all the offseason improvements. Surely they've schemed up some play calls that they're just waiting to break out. Like, give
me a flea flicker. Yeah, let's go.
Let's get creative, Marcus Satterfield. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Give me a flea flicker. Let's go.
Absolutely. I mean, if there's a game to do it, it's this one. Certainly the nation will be watching. Lots of attention, lots of excitement. More to come here in the next couple of days as Nebraska does get ready for this Saturday night 6:30 kick there on NBC. That is the matchup to watch. So we're ready for it. We'll have all the coverage for you, of course, on journalstar.com. Looking forward to this one. Big matchup coming up. Hope you'll stick with us. And as always, appreciate all of you listeners and viewers tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to this week's Life in the Red podcast. Our theme music is composed by Sasha Indy. The stories continue on journalstar.com.